I enjoy found objects because it's really the relationship between one object and how it integrates and relates to the next found object. True dumpster diving. I'm able to collect them. I'm able to combine them into pieces successfully, and I'm able to sell them. I was always a tool user. Always had about 2 or 3 chainsaws in the back of my truck or station wagon, my parents' car. And if you're a tool user, then making sculptures was kind of easy. When I was at SMU, I would do accounting in the morning and take the courses in the morning, and I really needed to get outside, so I went over to the art school. Now we can put this on. So I met James Searles, who was my sculpturing teacher at SMU back in 1969, and we just hit it off. We want to take the dolly there. I guess James Searles and I talk at least 2 or 3 times a week. He's been a great supporter of mine. I've helped him over the years. After law school, I started practicing tax accounting and tax law. I had built this art studio up here at our ranch, this sculpture studio, to let other artists use it. And so about 7 years ago, I started collecting metal, getting back into the scrapyard business. And really started finding a lot of great scrap and found objects.
Hey, what are they unloading? But those are rods, stainless steel rods. I'll have to come back and get these.
Then about 5-6 years ago, I started making some pieces and entered a contest and was lucky enough to get chosen. And then a gallery picked me up.
It's kind of amazing to see these works and have them be so full of life, full of wit, be compositionally very complex, that they really do stand out in this grand lineage of lauded welded steel sculptors, from Julio Gonzalez to David Smith, Pablo Picasso, all the way through to the present day with artists like Marc de Souvero. And considering that he took 30 years off, it's astounding, really, that his work is of a maturity already to stand within that lineage. It's really amazing, actually. The thing that really shows George's maturity is his ability to know when to stop, his ability to recognize when a composition is done. And that's a very fine line to walk. As you are aggregating all of these things and putting them together, to realize that moment when if you add one more thing, then it throws the entire composition off. And so to stop and let it be and leave it.
A lot of found object stainless steel. Probably, just to give you a rough idea, this is probably 50,000 pounds of stainless steel. It's kind of like my private scrapyard. I just acquired a couple more carts. These are push carts that are probably at least 100 years old. And I've got a piece over here called my grandfather's startup. My grandfather was in the textile business, both of my grandfathers, and they would use, when I'd go see them in their warehouses, they would always have these carts and they would be pushing textiles around and either making hats or cowboy shirts or linens and stuff, just with fabric, with fabric. And it just depicts, a push cart that the old timers would use in their business. I try to keep the history of how that object was produced, or how that object was used in the process of making, fabricating parts or plates or things for other objects. And then these are the remnants. So if there's a paint on it, if there's a numbering system on it, if I can, and if it's salvageable, I will keep it in and on the art itself. At one point in time, I thought about having some of my pieces cast, and in doing so, I talked to Searles and I talked to Ted Pillsbury, and they said, your use of found objects really does not translate it into casting of pieces. And so I just decided to stick with the found objects and stick with doing what I enjoy, collecting, visiting junkyards, scrap yards, and combining them. We will go to, when I say we, myself and a couple of guys up here that help me, Joe Miller and Levi, we go to a great extent in cleaning it, sealing it, and making sure that piece is welded on very securely. As I was making pieces, I was also working in the business world. So if I'm working on a deal and that deal falls apart because, something goes wrong, bad numbers, or the people we're dealing with just didn't turn out to be the right people, then we would have deal breakers. So I started naming pieces deal breakers. I had a series of deal breakers, had a series of entrepreneurs, and I always dealt with a lot of entrepreneurs in the franchise world. And then we would have inventory. I'd have tons of inventory. So I had parts for sculpture pieces and called them inventory. This piece right here is called my signature, because every time I do pieces or have a show, everybody would ask, why don't you sign your pieces? And Searles doesn't sign his. I hadn't signed my pieces because I think when you look at my pieces and found objects, hopefully you know who made them. But this is called my signature piece, and it kind of represented the long name Tobolowsky, kind of scribbled out. That piece there will weigh easily maybe 4,000 pounds, 3,000 pounds. Just that circle on the base was a 1,200 pound piece of metal. You got to make sure it is stabilized as you go up with it. And then once you get it up, you got to make sure when you're transporting it and installing it, you got to make sure it's stabilized in the installation process. And I like three-dimensional. There's something about welding, about working in a studio when it's 10 degrees or 110 degrees. It gets me up into the country, and I'm it's just physical. I think the physical nature of welding and grinding and picking up pieces is what I enjoy.